The effects of a lack of femininity in the modern world. So this would also mainly be in terms of femininity in a woman in general, but specifically in the Western world, because femininity, just as an energy, the yin energy is probably would be more prevalent in a country like in a rural country that's not really bogged down by a city more yang energy. So you would probably see a more feminine substance in the women who live in like the country. And now they work really hard and everything. What I'm saying is they're not going to be like indoctrinated to be like super masculine and feministy to where like they end up uh, thinking they have to grow a pair to be taken serious. Uh, yeah. So, just as an aside, as a thought, I think femininity isn't really designed to be taken seriously necessarily. Well, let me see if I can expound upon that. It's like an invitation for an experience. It's not, so that is the awe and authenticity of it, is that the seriousness of it is that it seriously causes a lot of healing and causes a lot of connection. The seriousness of it is that it seriously causes a lot of people to want, like, it inspires you, it nourishes you, it, so the energy, it allows you to experience as well. So your experiential, the experiential aspect of life, like that part of life where, like, let's just say, like, you're on a roller coaster, right? So you're on a roller coaster and you're anticipating going down the roller coaster and then going up and around and stuff like that. And then you stop. One of the major aspects that guys don't like about women, just in general, we don't like this about the female, the feminine psyche, is that it is drawn to drama. It needs, the feminine psyche requires experience, like experiential, right? Like kind of what I'm saying. It requires experience in every dimension in order to be completely nourished. It needs to feel a high and a low and a high and a low in different areas at different times. And this has to be constantly nourished in order for the feminine to blossom. The feminine doesn't blossom in structure and monotony the way masculinity does, um, which, you know, kind of explains why guys don't really like drama and things like that. But anyways, drama is not necessarily a bad thing. Drama, I think, um, where where it's needed can actually be a good thing. But the effects of the lack of femininity in the West, specifically the women in the West, are, you know, obvious. This is obvious to most people, but I'm trying to point out things that are a little less obvious, which is the point of this. Women in the West are becoming more masculine. They're essentially trying to become walking caricatures of men, but they're doing it out of fear. Um, it's not being done out of actual empowerment. It's being done because they believe, they have this belief that they have to, like, almost like it's derived from a duty, which again would be masculine, right? But then um, one of the main issues in the West and why technology is causing such a big issue is that, so technology doesn't actually cause the separation. Um, Technology actually can be utilized to make people connect. So it doesn't actually have to cause separation of people. It just depends on who's wielding it, whether it's a person who's benevolent, who's creating the programming, programming the AI, all the algorithms and things like that can be made. The algorithms, the AI can all be utilized to bring people together. It doesn't have to separate. The reason why humanity is starting to separate is because the feminine vessels are starting to try to emulate yang energy. They're trying to become masculine. And so if we have more yin energy developed in the yin vessel, like women, if we have more women who are becoming feminine, what ends up happening is those women will actually get talked to more often. And this will create a world that starts to become more experiential. The world, people will want to connect more. And those women will kind of have a torrent of people behind them and will kind of nourish those people within their vicinity. That it is really different than masculine energy, right? Because like masculine energy, it's monotonous. It's overwhelming, but it's overwhelming in a different way. Now, the way someone explained it, they said, I believe they said that masculine energy is electric, but then feminine energy is like, I don't know. I mean, I guess some people say it's like water, and then they say masculine's like fire. But then I've also heard it explained that masculine energy is electric, but then feminine energy is cool. It's like ice. Um, so, anyways, um, the real thing that we've lost from women, and from just the deeper aspect of energy and people around us, is just feminine energy. That energy specifically from women is what's causing the separation. Um, but then also what makes, now this is something that I think is the case also. Men are becoming less masculine, less, now when I say masculine, people have their own weird caricatures of what they think that means. Um, Men are becoming less fire, and so it's becoming less, women don't feel safe to be feminine. And so it's a really interesting situation. I'm not saying that, just saying it as an excuse for why they should just stay masculine, right? Because some women say, well, I would be feminine if he was masculine, and then I would just morph, I would transform like a transformer into this feminine person. But a lot of the times, and this is something people, or I guess a lot of women don't realize, if you stay masculine too long, then it'll get to the point where you just forget how to be feminine, and you'll be like, kind of like scared and wondering, wait a minute, like, I don't know. I doubt it'll end in a nervous breakdown or something like that. It's like you won't even be able to attract people to you. You'll just push them away because you won't be able to emotionally connect with people. You'll be emotionally unavailable. People will view you as callous, as cold, as uncaring, unforgiving. And that's kind of what's happening. You got a bunch of women in the country, and just in other countries as well, but it's particularly in the West, who are becoming unforgiving, cold, uncaring, things like that. But then the men are reacting by doing the same thing, which isn't good. But then we're looking at the men and thinking, hey, you're acting horrible, or you're being a terrible person. It's like, well, look across the street, man. So granted, none of the behavior is good, but I'm just bringing it up. So the main effect for the loss of femininity is is the separation. Um, Femininity is one of the core values. One of the core things about it is that feminine people often have the most. They have the most friends. They have they're the best at creating friends, and perhaps the bonds are stronger. I don't know. Maybe that's not true, but the idea I'm trying to get at here is that femininity is important because it allows us to be open to connection. It allows us to be open to others, and that creates a scenario where we can connect with others. If you got too much masculine, then guess what? You got a 10-foot wall in front of a person and you don't end up talking to the person because you're not open enough. You don't have enough yin energy to actually hear them out, hear their perspective, hear their point of view, talk to them, things like that. Listen to a person. We need more people to listen to other people. This actually is a very important skill that's kind of dying because we're all becoming like malignant narcissists. I'm joking a little, but I'm kind of serious in a way. So we're all kind of like full of it a little bit. We're all kind of like thinking that only thing that's important is ourself, our own survival, and things like that. But listening to people, I think, is one of the major skills that requires a decent degree of feminine energy. But like good, I'm not saying like bad things. So like there is a negative aspect to a feminine, being a feminine person, and there's a negative aspect. There's a duality to everything. But generally speaking, the energy itself isn't bad. So like things like toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, I don't think really apply in this conversation. So I should be careful about that one. But yeah, so listening, I think is something that brings out a lot of this, just throwing out practical things. So when a person speaks, just listening to them. And this is true for men and women. It's important for men and women just listening to a person when they speak. Another thing would be so it's something I learned. One thing I could say I learned from my previous relationship is that the feminine women want to be heard, and they want to be seen. Like they want your presence. One of the ways, so this would be something for a guy, but then even a woman, maybe this is practical advice for a woman as well. But when someone is speaking, especially when something that they're, feeling sincere about, or something they want to be understood in the thing that they're saying. One of the things you can say to bridge the gap to help with that would be, I hear you. So by saying this, you're lending a degree of, even if you aren't able to empathize with it, they're at least hearing that you're trying to understand, or it's a way to bridge the gap, which ultimately I think is a feminine, like it's a need that this kind of person would have. And most people want to feel heard and understood. But I think this is especially more so with women. Yeah, the effects of a lack of femininity in women.